Robert Davis, a modest man with a hidden fortune, faces disdain and humiliation at a car dealership when the staff, led by the arrogant manager Thomas Green, dismiss him based on his appearance, ignored, mocked, and judged as unworthy. Robert decides to take action. He returns to the dealership, not as a customer, but as the new owner. As he begins to fire the staff who treated him with contempt, including those who belittled him, Robert's plan to reshape the dealership into a place of respect and fairness takes shape, challenging deep-seated prejudices and arrogance. Robert Davis walked into the showroom on a crisp afternoon, his aging car parked just outside. He wasn't a man of extravagance, though it wasn't immediately obvious. Wearing a well-worn jacket and scuffed boots, Robert didn't stand out against the modern, polished backdrop of the dealership. The shiny new vehicles gleamed under the showroom lights, yet Robert wasn't there to make a statement. He had one goal: to find a car that would serve him well, reliable, and functional. Despite his unremarkable appearance, there was a quiet resolve in his gaze. He didn't care about fitting in with the luxury vehicles on display, but that didn't stop the sharp-dressed sales team from giving him little attention. Their focus was on the younger, wealthier-looking clients who seemed better suited to the expensive cars lining the lot. Robert wandered through the aisles, taking his time to examine a sleek black sedan that caught his eye. He stood by it for what seemed like an eternity, but no one approached. The showroom floor bustled with activity, yet he felt as though he were invisible, out of place in a world of fast-paced, stylish customers. He waited, hoping for someone to offer help, but no one did. After a while, he walked to the front desk, where three salesmen were deep in conversation, laughing and exchanging jokes. One of them, Eric Turner, a sharply dressed young man with a cocky attitude and neatly combed hair, barely looked up as Robert neared the counter. "Excuse me," Robert said in a calm, steady voice, despite the growing frustration inside him. "I'd like some help with purchasing a car." Eric gave him a cursory glance before turning back to his conversation. "We're a bit tied up at the moment," he said in a dismissive tone. "Maybe try again later." Robert felt the sting of Eric's words, but he didn't respond. He heard one of the other salesmen snicker softly, followed by a muttered remark. "Just another tire kicker," they said, clearly assuming Robert wasn't serious about buying a car. That comment, though quiet, cut deeper than any harsh words could, but Robert didn't let it show. He turned, walking out of the dealership, his steps slow but deliberate. As he got into his old car, a storm of emotions surged within him, not anger, but a growing sense of resolve. The staff had underestimated him, but they would soon regret it. He wasn't about to walk away without a fight. Robert Davis wasn't your typical man. Though he lived a modest life, the unassuming figure had built a vast fortune through decades of prudent investments and calculated decisions. That evening, as he sat in his cozy living room, an idea began to form. An idea that would not only teach the dealership staff a valuable lesson, but would also shake their business to its core. To any outsider, Robert seemed like a quiet retiree, content with his humble life. But there was so much more beneath the surface. His wealth had been amassed through years of careful planning and a sharp business sense. While many would flaunt such success, Robert preferred a quiet, grounded existence. He believed true wealth was measured by how one treated others, not by the things they owned. The incident at the dealership played over and over in Robert's mind. How they had ignored him. How the staff had belittled him without ever knowing who he was. Instead of feeling defeated, he felt a surge of resolve. He wasn't about to walk away and forget about it. No. Robert was going to turn the tables. With calm determination, he picked up the phone and started making calls. Over the years, his reputation for wisdom and integrity had gained him a network of influential contacts in the business world. One by one, he reached out, explaining his vision and securing the backing he needed. By the end of the night, Robert had successfully orchestrated a bold move. He had purchased the dealership. But this wasn't just about getting back at them. Robert wanted to transform the dealership, turning it into a place where customers were treated with respect and dignity, no matter their appearance or social status. He envisioned a business founded on fairness, trust, and exemplary service. The next morning, Robert returned to the dealership. This time, he wasn't here as a customer. Dressed in his usual worn jacket and scuffed shoes, he walked into the showroom with quiet confidence. What the staff didn't know was that everything was about to change, and Robert Davis was about to reveal who he truly was. As he entered, Thomas Green, the general manager, glanced up. He didn't recognize Robert from the day before, so he approached with a polite but unenthusiastic smile. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" Thomas asked, his tone practiced, but insincere. Robert didn't respond with words. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a set of neatly arranged documents. Without a word, he handed them to Thomas, who took them, still oblivious to what was happening. As Thomas unfolded the papers and began to read, his confident demeanor faltered. His eyes widened as he processed the information, his expression shifting from polite curiosity to shock. His hands trembled as he read the final line. What is this?" Thomas stammered, his voice trembling. Robert met his gaze, his expression calm and composed. "These are the papers confirming that I've acquired this dealership," he said steadily. "As of today, I am the new owner." A heavy silence filled the room. The other staff members, hearing the exchange, began to turn their attention to the unfolding scene. The look of disbelief on Thomas's face was evident as the reality of the situation sank in. Robert wasn't just another forgettable customer. He was their new boss, and everything was about to change. The murmur among the employees grew louder, their curiosity piqued by Robert's presence. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension, and it wasn't just the silence, it was the quiet power that Robert emanated as he turned his gaze to the entire team. His voice, though soft, was laden with authority that commanded attention. "Yesterday, I walked through these doors as a customer," Robert began, his calm words filling the room. "I was ignored, dismissed, and judged based on nothing more than my appearance. The treatment I received wasn't just disrespectful to me. It was disrespectful to anyone who walks through this door. That ends today." The staff held their breath, waiting for what would come next. Robert's eyes locked onto Thomas Green, who remained frozen in disbelief. Robert's gaze was unwavering as he addressed the general manager directly. "Thomas, as the general manager, it was your job to ensure that every person who walked in here was treated with respect," Robert continued. "Instead, you allowed a culture of arrogance and exclusion to take root. Effective immediately, you're fired." Thomas's face turned pale, and he sputtered in shock, his voice rising with disbelief. Fired? You can't be serious." "I'm very serious," Robert replied coolly, his words carrying the weight of finality. "This dealership needs a complete overhaul, and that begins with leadership." There was no room for argument. Robert watched as Thomas, stunned and humiliated, exited the room, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Once Thomas was gone, Robert turned his attention to the remaining employees. His tone was firm, but it held a fairness that made it clear he wasn't here to make enemies. He was here to create change. "This dealership will no longer tolerate arrogance, indifference, or discrimination," Robert declared. "Every customer, no matter how they look or what they can afford, will be treated with dignity. If you can't uphold those values, you're not welcome here." The air grew thick as Robert scanned the room, locking eyes with the individuals who had participated in the previous day's dismissive behavior. First up was Garrett Blake, the salesman with the slicked-back hair, who had mocked Robert and ignored his presence. Robert's steady gaze never wavered as he addressed Garrett directly. "Pack your things, Garrett," Robert said, his voice as cold as it was resolute. "You're done here." Garrett's face flushed with embarrassment, and for a moment, he seemed to want to argue, but seeing the unwavering determination in Robert's eyes, he shrank back, avoiding eye contact. He turned without a word and trudged to his desk, his humiliation evident as he gathered his things and left. His departure sent a clear message to the others. No one was above accountability. Next, Robert looked at the remaining staff, each of them under scrutiny. "This dealership will no longer operate on arrogance or indifference," he continued. "From now on, everyone will be treated with respect. No exceptions. If that's something you can't get behind, then there's the door." The tension was palpable, but amidst the reshuffling and the firings, Robert also made time to acknowledge the employees, who had acted with kindness and professionalism. One of them was Laura Bennett, a young woman who had greeted Robert the day before with a warm smile. Despite his unremarkable appearance, her subtle, yet genuine gesture hadn't gone unnoticed. "Laura," Robert said, his voice softening slightly. "Thank you for your kindness yesterday. You set an example of what this place should be. I appreciate your attitude and dedication." Laura, surprised but grateful, nodded in acknowledgement. A small smile broke across her face as she realized that, in this new chapter, her approach to work was not just valued, it was essential. By the end of the day, Robert had reshaped the dealership in ways that would take time to fully unfold. The staff, still reeling from the sudden shift in power, now knew that the old ways were gone. The dealership was no longer a place where arrogance and dismissive behavior thrived. It was a business rooted in fairness, respect, and integrity. Robert had not only made a statement, but he had begun to create the foundation of something much larger. This was his vision, and he wasn't about to let anyone forget it. Laura Bennett hadn't been assigned to sales. Instead, she had worked quietly behind the scenes, handling various tasks with a dedication that had not gone unnoticed. As Robert scanned the room, his eyes landed on her. "Laura," he called, motioning for her to step forward. Nervously, Laura approached. Unsure of what to expect, Robert had made it clear that change was coming, but she had no idea how it would affect her. As she stood before him, he looked at her with an expression of approval. "You were one of the few people here who treated me with decency," Robert began, his voice steady, but warm. "Starting today, you're the new floor manager." Laura's eyes widened in shock. Me. But I've only been here 6 months," she stammered, her voice filled with uncertainty. Robert smiled kindly. "I'm not concerned with seniority," he replied. "What matters to me is how you treat others. You've already shown me that you have the right values. Congratulations." A wave of disbelief rippled through the remaining staff as they exchanged nervous glances. They realized now that Robert wasn't seeking revenge or retribution. His leadership was about building something better, something rooted in respect and fairness, where people could grow and thrive. It wasn't about tearing others down. It was about nurturing a culture of integrity. By the end of the day, nearly half the staff had been dismissed. They were replaced in the coming weeks by individuals who aligned with Robert's vision for the dealership. Under Laura's guidance and Robert's continued leadership, the business underwent a remarkable transformation. Gone were the days of arrogance and indifference. The dealership had become a place where professionalism and warmth reigned supreme. The changes were evident almost immediately. Word of the dealership's new approach quickly spread, and customers who had once been put off by the cold, dismissive atmosphere found themselves returning for a completely different experience. The showroom, once marked by tension and aloofness, now buzzed with energy. Sales skyrocketed as the dealership's reputation blossomed into one of respect and exceptional service. Under Laura's management, the staff embodied the principles Robert had instilled: humility, fairness, and respect. Robert, however, remained the same modest figure he had always been. Despite the dealership's newfound success, he didn't seek the spotlight or bask in the attention. For Robert, the joy wasn't in the financial gains or recognition. It was in knowing that he had created something meaningful, a business where people treated each other with dignity. One afternoon, as Robert walked through the showroom, he noticed Laura approaching. There was a noticeable change in her demeanor. She was more confident, her growth evident in the way she carried herself. "Mr. Simmons," she began, her voice hesitant but filled with gratitude. "I just wanted to thank you for believing in me and giving me this chance. It's been an incredible opportunity." Robert smiled warmly, his eyes reflecting pride. "You earned it, Laura. All I did was recognize what was already there. Just remember, keep treating people with respect. That's what truly matters." Laura nodded, her gratitude clear. Under her leadership and Robert's guidance, the dealership had become a beacon of how kindness and humility could transform a business. It wasn't just a place to buy cars anymore. It had become a symbol of what respect and fairness could accomplish. As Robert left the dealership that day, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction, not from the power he had gained, but from the lasting change he had sparked. His legacy wasn't about wealth or accolades. It was about the impact he had made on the people around him, the reminder that how we treat others, regardless of their appearance or status, defines our true character. The story of Robert Simmons serves as a powerful reminder. Humility and kindness can create lasting change. It's a call to action for all of us to reflect on how we treat others, for that reflection is the measure of our own character. Thank you for watching. If Robert's journey inspired you, take a moment to reflect on the lessons we can all carry into our lives. Don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Real Life Stories for more incredible tales of transformation and inspiration.